Hey, I just want to let you guys know also to tune in next week, next Monday. We're gonna have Brent Butterworth and Dennis Berger on. They have a new podcast. It's called Audio Unleashed, and
Ooh.
I don't listen to very many other audio guys. That's just the truth. Just because I don't know. There's just not enough time. I don't have enough time to I need to review my own stuff, so I don't need to watch somebody else reviewing other stuff. It's just it's outside of the stuff I need to do. But also, it kind of upsets me. I've already said that before. When I see something and it's not up to what my standards are, which doesn't mean that it's just there are certain people that I kind of connect with more. They're more my style, more objective, have a lot of experience, and you could tell they spend a lot of time. They really think about something before they say it, things like that. That's just my style. That resonates with me.
What's that? You think before you speak?
Maybe not so much. Maybe that's why I admire them so much. They seem to think a little bit more than I do. I just say what I want to say. But I respect those guys a lot. So we're gonna have them on. Been asking them for a while, and that should be exciting. Aaron, I know you wanted me to wait to have him on because you said you wanted to be there. So hopefully you can be there.
For sure. Yeah, definitely. I will be there.
I know the time when Anthony Gramani was on, I had to go join from the Audi dealership because I was not at home. We were in Reno. I was the only place with reliable Wi-Fi because the car wasn't doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That should be a good one. I think they're gonna fit in well. You could tell they get along real well outside of the podcast. You know what I mean? It's I'm sure that they, you can just kind of tell.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
what they say. Birds of a feather flock together, right?
Something like that.
Something like that. Yep.
Have you guys listened to Aaron? Have you listened to any of their recent podcasts?
Yeah, I actually was talking to Dennis this morning where I told him that I haven't listened to the newest one because I was on vacation last week. Normally I listen to them when I'm driving to and from work, but I haven't had a chance to listen to the newest one, but I'm looking forward to hearing it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I listen to them pretty regularly. I listened to them when they were doing the Soundstage podcast before they switched over to their own podcast separate from that.
It's part of my routine to listen. Actually, I it's about an hour or so long. I cut my hair. I listen. It's a routine. This most recent one, they were talking about somebody who was pretty much saying why measurements are no good. Kind of why we need a new type of we need to figure out different ways of measuring so we can figure out, a way to make it correlate to what we hear. And they were kind of just cracking up that research has all been done a long time ago.
Right.
It's in this book. It's not it's not new to us. Maybe it's new to you, but it's not new to everybody else. And so that kind of made me think because I watched another video that Veristasium, I think it's called. He has a good channel.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was an old video of him just kind of talking about how the internet and the algorithm tends to get people to kind of make little clicks, kind of polarize people. Oh, you believe in that? Okay, boom. Here's your people, and then you start strengthening your belief over here. And then these people who are, there's always an opposing belief, and they start strengthening them. I don't want to get political at all, right? But you get the idea. But it kind of reminded me of how that works in audio with people who are, subjective, more subjective minded, let's just say, where their belief is listen, trust your ears. If you like the way something sounds, and that's it. That's good enough.
Cool.
And then you have the people who are really looking at the objective measurements, and that's kind of what they're using to guide somewhat. I'm not saying that that's what they're gonna use solely to make a purchasing decision, but definitely they're gonna look at those and it's gonna guide their purchasing decisions in some way, more so than just this guy said they sounded, I don't know, whatever word you want to throw in there. So I don't know. I just started thinking about those two things, about how maybe it's also the algorithms, that are causing people to put out stuff where it's more they reward you if you say something that's a little controversial. If half of the people are arguing and people keep coming back to that video, that's like that's good. That's good for them. It's view time. People are staying on, watching more videos.
Yes, I would agree. All these platforms want nothing more than people to stay on the platform and watch. So what is the best way for that to happen? You put up something controversial, like everyone should buy expensive cables.
Yeah. Ooh. So that's why I've said it before, is sometimes it's the algorithm, but it's also sometimes you see people egging it on in the comments too. They want to see something happen. They want to see
some drama. Somebody was like, "Hey, Shane was talking smack about your product, Shane and Don Dunn." I was like, okay, I don't know."
Yeah,
sure.
That's good. That's good. It's always good when somebody's talking about what you're doing. But it made me think, why? Like, how would you connect the two instead of trying to separate it out? Let's make this the lowest viewed video and not make it polarizing, right?
Right.
How do you get these two groups to see eye to eye in some way?
Dude, chances are you're probably not. That's the thing.
So? I don't believe that.
What? So here you used the right word. You used belief. When someone's belief is this thing, you can't have. Some idiot said something on one of my videos. He's like, expensive cables. No, he said, "Ooh, did you hear the way enter blank drummer's name sticks on the drum made a sound like this?" I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Just because you know the name of the drummer doesn't mean whatever you're saying is actually making any sense, dude. Like it doesn't. But to them, that's their whole thing. The only I'm trying to think of drummers, and the only thing that comes to mind is John Bottom right now. So that's the only drummer I can think about right now. But it's one of those things. I don't think you'll ever change anybody's mind if it's something that they believe, right? Like it just
I think it's possible, at least for the people who are willing. You see, if people are not willing and they enjoy just having their mindset this particular way, well, there's not much you can do if a person's not willing to learn anything new.
What I don't understand is the mostly say the same thing. Listening guy, they were a tad bright in the upper end. Measurements guy, the measurements show boosted highs.
I think that's great.
That's perfect. Those things are in together. They're correlating.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So Fred is a good example because Fred initially, when he joined our after shows, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think you weren't so much into the measurement aspect. But he says, let me read this first. He says, you have to correlate the measurements to the audiophile terms. I think it brings the two together. And what I was going to say is that Fred was convinced to check out those Arundel speakers based on, I think, Aaron, some of your measurements. Well, that's measurements, right? And my recommendation, I said, hey, I think this is an easy recommendation, and he loves them, and he's like, how did you guys know? How did you guys know that these were going to be so good? I was like,
dude, Joe is psychic. Okay? Joe and Aaron are psychic. Once they do the measurements, they're totally psychic. They can tell you exactly. Although the room does matter, because Aaron, you measured those Aria 906s and they're totally bright, but in my room they're totally not. There's like a big suck out there. So like my room is doing something totally different. But
they hurt my ears.
At the end of the day, say again?
I said, yeah, those speakers hurt my ears.
Dude, I've listened to those for hours on end. So it depends. Or what is
Fred says that is correct. I was always mostly frequency responsive, but because your recommendations were so good, I am now a believer in both. Okay. And yeah, I think measurements are just, I don't know. I think it's just simply a good thing to have. Like, even seeing how Chana's room affects those speakers that you reviewed, Aaron. Our measurement his in-room measurements do not agree with what the anechoic measurements are. Like but what does that mean? It means that his room is doing something, obviously, or his system. One of the
two. I lucked out.
Thing is changing the sound.
Joe's like, hey, you might want to check your amplifier if your amplifiers are.
Hey, you never know.
It helps you troubleshoot. Like, what is happening here? Why is the treble so low in comparison to what we know it should be anechoically? Or is it one of these things like with the polk? Maybe they changed something up.
Maybe. Who knows?
So anyway, what do you guys think? Is there a way to get these guys to see more eye to eye? Aaron, what do you think?
I think so. I think what you said and somebody else already said. Like, I mean, it's, if it's the kind of person who has already made up their mind, then there may not be any opportunity to get them to understand like the importance of measurements or their usefulness. But if you go into it with an open mind, it's a lot easier. So I've had pretty good luck. I mean, there's not been a lot of people that have said, "Oh, you've changed my mind," but I've had a lot of people say that, seeing your measurements helped me to understand better what I was hearing, or relate things. And that's really the goal, just to say, all right, well, here's a measurement for this speaker. So this is kind of what you can expect. It's not going to be 100%, but it's a lot closer than guessing. And that, to me, that's really the key factor. Is it's a lot closer than guessing. And it takes those subjective terms out of it, somebody may use a word and it may mean something different to you or another person.
Yeah.
And if you can show measurements, and like when I do my reviews, I say, all right, this is the word I'm using to describe it, and this is what I mean. Like, this is what I attribute it to in the measurements. And then the hope is that other people going further will see similar measurements or other measurements and say, all right, now I understand where he's coming up with that conclusion, and hopefully they'll have some speakers that I've tested that they've owned themselves that they can also go back and look at measurements. But I don't ever expect anybody to go and look at just measurements and say, I'm going to buy that speaker. Like, I never expect that to happen. Mm-hmm. But what I do expect or hope is that people will look at measurements and say, yeah, this speaker definitely looks like a travesty, and I'm not dropping $4,000 on it just to find out that it's not that great. Like, I'm going to try to find some way to
confirm what the measurements say, right?
Right. I'll either go somewhere and listen to it, or I'll make sure I'll order through a retailer that has a good return policy at the least.
Well, see, that's
do that. That's good enough.
Somebody said in the chat a couple weeks ago that, or maybe a month ago, that they can't hear the speakers in person, so they have to go off of a lot of reviews, including me. Mm-hmm. If the closest place I can go is Best Buy Magnolia in Carson City, Nevada, 2.5 hour each direction. If I want to hear some more high end speakers, I got to go to Reno, so that's 3 hours back and forth each way. So I would fall prey to shopping online via the numbers, right? Whatever it says on the website, the frequency response. If I'm looking at subwoofers like I am, like, I'm shopping by numbers because I can't experience them. So it's tough nowadays. Well, I think back then it was easier. You had to go to the circuit cities, the good guys. You had to go to the mom and pop places. Like, my dad would always take me to these mom and pop places. I'm like 7 years old. I'm like, what's a Macintosh, Dad? He's like, oh, that's the good stuff. I was like, okay, what are we looking at? He's like, we're looking at B&O. I was like, oh, what does that mean? Like, there it is. I'm 7 years old, hi-fi shopping with pops. Right. Fantastic.
That's what makes it fun.
I think the funniest, what really was the kicker was listening to stuff on the songs I listened to, like, back then, like on tape, in his Nakamichi tape deck, going into his Bang & Olufsen, 2-channel. And then I would go to my friend's house when I was 13 and listen to it on their like Sony bookshelf system thing. And I was just like, oh, this doesn't sound the same. Like, what's going on here? And that's when I realized, like, oh, I guess the equipment matters. Right. The speakers matter. The tape player matters. This all of it matters.
So going back to what I was asking about, if we can get these two camps to see eye to eye, And somebody said it here, and it first of all, whenever I debate with somebody, I always ask them like, is there something that I could say that could convince you? Is it possible at all? Because if the answer is no, then they just said there's no way that
if
you're
talking to a wall, you're talking to a wall. That's not.
But if they say, if you show me this, this, and this, and this, okay, cool. Let me get that for you. Here's the information. It's possible. So that's what I ask. And for the people who are open-minded enough to try to see what the other side is saying, I think what they'll find is that, okay, let me just kind of go with this. I was checking out some different mics and trying to calibrate them to a known calibrated mic, and I was using different DACs, I guess, where it's a USB to 3.5 millimeter adapter, but this is an adapter for a microphone, so I needed to, it's kind of the opposite way. So the same microphone, I'd measure it a couple times, and the USB DAC that I used did make a audible difference, measurable. I mean, some of them had the high frequencies that were tapered off, but that thing is probably like $1. That's why, it was $1, and the one that's $10, or the one that came with the phone that maybe is $20, perfect. And then if I connect it to my Motu M2, that's $150, $200 or something, same as the $20 one or the $10 one. So do I need to spend $2,000, $20,000? No, come on. It's just that the $1 one wasn't good.
But hey, Joe, if you were to promote the $20,000 one, you would make more money.
Well, that happened.
One sale of those.
Yeah, one sale. I mean, it's hard for some of these YouTube guys to turn down that kind of money, because they. But hey, you want to sell your integrity for a couple
my point
of
being
dollars.
this, though. Here's my point. My point is that when they say, "Hey, I did hear a difference when I changed from my phone DAC and then I upgraded to a better DAC," okay, I believe that. I believe that you do hear a difference because it probably has more amplifier power for your headphones. The one that was in your, maybe a cheap laptop or whatever tablet, maybe it's the dollar piece that I'm talking about. And
I don't know, man. My laptop has Dolby Atmos, so I don't know.
Well,
probably got a good DAC.
$5,000 laptop.
It probably doesn't. It probably has the shittiest DAC in there.
It better have a decent DAC. So that's where I think the subjective guys are kind of like coming from. Like, I do hear a difference. So you guys are saying that, but you know what? There is also a measurable difference. Like, there's correlation. So I think what you start to see the more you get into is what you hear and what you measure. They agree.
Yeah.
Rarely do they disagree. Very rarely do they disagree.
I was thinking about this today, actually. Paul, where's Paul? Is Croissant in here? He isn't, but he said it. He said in one of the after shows, he's like, if it can be heard, it can be measured. And I think that's a huge thing. So if you can't measure a difference, then you can't hear it.
Make sure to join us every Monday for our live stream at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern at youtube.com/Daily HiFi.